The shelter always felt quieter in the early afternoon. Sunlight slipped through the high windows in pale stripes, warming the concrete floor where the dogs usually slept. She moved down the aisle with practiced calm, clipboard tucked under her arm, listening to the soft rhythm of breathing, the occasional tail thump, the gentle clink of metal bowls. It was an ordinary shift. Predictable. Safe. Then the new pup stopped walking. His leash went tight in her hand. Not hard, just enough to make her look down. He wasn't pulling forward or trying to back away. He stood frozen, ears tilted, head slightly lowered, eyes fixed on the far end of the corridor. His body trembled almost imperceptibly, like he was listening to something she couldn't hear. "Come on," she whispered, smiling despite herself. He didn't move. Instead, he let out a low, uncertain whine. Not fear. Not aggression. Something closer to confusion, or recognition. His paws shifted, turning him sideways, subtly blocking her path. When she tried to step around him, he leaned back into her leg, refusing to let her pass. Her chest tightened. Dogs barked for many reasons. They froze for many reasons. But this quiet insistence made her pulse quicken. She followed his gaze. Empty hallway. Closed doors. Nothing out of place. The pup suddenly lifted his head and tilted it, as if responding to a sound carried on air alone. His tail wagged once. Slowly. Carefully. "Do you hear that?" she murmured, though she knew there was nothing to hear. The pup took one deliberate step forward. And that's when everything finally made sense. Before we continue, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching dog stories. And tell me, where are you watching from? The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and crayons. Late afternoon sunlight stretched in long golden bands across the polished floors of Meadow Creek Elementary. The building had quieted into that soft, hollow silence that follows a busy school day. Lockers closed, backpacks gone, laughter lingering only as an echo in memory. Officer Daniel Ramirez walked beside his K-9 partner, Rex. Rex's nails clicked gently against the tile. A steady rhythmic sound. Familiar. Comforting. They had just finished a school safety demonstration. The children had crowded around earlier, wide-eyed and excited, asking Rex to sit, to shake, to catch the bad guy, which Rex had done with patient enthusiasm and a wagging tail. Now the excitement had faded. Only the hum of distant ventilation remained. Ramirez adjusted the leash loosely in his hand. "Good job today," he murmured. Rex's tail gave a small, satisfied sway. His ears were relaxed. His mouth slightly open in a quiet pant. He looked like any other well-trained police dog finishing an ordinary day. They turned the corner toward the main exit. That's when Rex stopped. Not hesitated. Stopped. His body stiffened mid-step. The leash drew gently tight. Ramirez almost walked into him. "Hey," he said softly. "What is it?" Rex's ears rose sharply forward. His head angled toward classroom 3B. The door was closed but not latched. A strip of dim light glowed beneath it. Ramirez followed the dog's gaze. The hallway felt different suddenly. Not dangerous. Just still. Rex took one step forward. Then positioned himself sideways in the middle of the corridor, blocking it. His posture changed in subtle ways only someone who knew him well would notice. His tail lowered slightly. Not tucked, not fearful, just alert. Muscles along his shoulders tightened beneath his tan and black coat. "Rex," Ramirez said gently, giving a light tug. The dog didn't move. Instead, a low, uneasy whine vibrated from his chest. Ramirez felt it then. That shift. The quiet tightening just below his ribs. Rex wasn't reactive. He wasn't easily distracted. Years of training had shaped his instincts into something sharp and reliable. If Rex paused like this, it meant something. "Easy," Ramirez whispered. He crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to the dog's level. Rex's nose lifted. He sniffed the air once. Twice. Then he stepped closer to the classroom door. Slowly. Carefully. His breathing changed, shorter pulls through his nose. Focused. Analytical. Ramirez stood. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly. The rest of the hallway stretched empty behind them. "Probably just leftover food," Ramirez muttered half to himself. "Or a kid dropped something." He believed it for a moment. Then Rex did something he almost never did indoors. He barked. Once. Sharp. Controlled. The sound bounced off the lockers and disappeared into the silence. Ramirez's pulse jumped. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, I hear you. He approached the door. It was cracked open just enough to see inside. Desks arranged in neat rows. Construction paper snowflakes hanging from the ceiling. A whiteboard still covered in math problems written in blue marker. The classroom looked perfectly normal. Peaceful. Ramirez pushed the door gently. It creaked open. Rex stepped inside first, not pulling, not rushing. Just alert. His nose moved slowly along the air, then toward the nearest desk. Ramirez scanned the room. The faint smell of crayons lingered. Paper. Eraser shavings. That warm, dusty scent unique to elementary classrooms. Nothing appeared disturbed. Nothing out of place. Then Rex froze again. He turned his head toward the interior window that faced the hallway. There, taped slightly crooked against the glass, was a single sheet of white paper. A child's drawing. Ramirez hadn't noticed it from outside. He stepped closer. The drawing showed a small stick-figure child standing in what looked like a dark room. Thick black crayon scribbles surrounded the figure. Heavy. Pressed hard into the paper. Beside the child was a tall red shape. Larger. Looming. Above them, drawn in shaky pencil letters, were the words, "Don't tell." Ramirez swallowed. Kids drew monsters all the time. Imaginations were wild at that age. Still, Rex approached the drawing slowly. His ears remained forward. He didn't bark again. Instead, he leaned closer, nose inches from the glass, and let out a soft, almost broken whine. Not fear. Concern. The kind he showed when finding someone during search and rescue training. "Buddy," Ramirez whispered. The air in the room felt heavier now. He looked back toward the hallway. Empty. He looked again at the drawing. Something about the pressure of the crayon strokes. The darkness packed tightly around the small figure. Didn't feel playful. Felt urgent. Rex shifted his attention away from the window. He turned. Walked deliberately toward the third row of desks. Stopped at one. Lowered his head. And gently placed his nose against the wooden surface. He didn't scratch. He didn't paw. He simply stood there. Waiting. Ramirez's heart began to beat harder. "Rex," he said quietly, his voice no longer casual. "Show me." The dog looked up at him, then back at the desk, then up again. That steady gaze. That silent insistence. Ramirez moved closer. On the corner of the desk sat a name tag written in purple marker. Lily M. The chair was pushed in neatly. A small pink backpack hung from the side hook. Ramirez felt a strange chill travel along his arms. He reached out slowly, opened the desk. Inside were textbooks, a half-eaten pack of crackers, and a thin spiral notebook. Rex inhaled deeply, then exhaled through his nose in a slow, controlled breath. Ramirez hesitated. His fingers rested on the notebook cover. The hallway outside remained silent. The fluorescent lights hummed. The world seemed to hold its breath. He glanced at Rex one more time. The dog's posture was steady, focused, protective. Ramirez opened the notebook, and the first page made his chest tighten. But what the dog sensed was far from ordinary. The page trembled slightly in Officer Ramirez's hand, not because of what he saw. Not yet. Because of what he felt. Rex shifted beside him, not impatient, not restless, just alert. His weight leaned subtly toward the desk, as if anchoring himself there. Ramirez exhaled slowly. "Okay," he murmured. "Let's take this one step at a time." He flipped the notebook closed again. Not out of fear. Out of instinct. Something about this required witnesses. Procedure. Care. He stepped back from the desk and looked around the classroom once more. Everything still appeared ordinary. Chairs stacked neatly. Posters about kindness taped to the walls. A reading corner with a soft blue rug and a line of well-loved books. It felt wrong for anything serious to exist in a room like this. He clipped the notebook back inside the desk and straightened. "Let's go talk to someone," he said quietly. Rex didn't move. The dog remained planted beside the desk. His tail had lowered slightly, not tucked but still. His ears were forward. His gaze fixed. "Rex," Ramirez said gently, giving a small tug on the leash. Nothing. Then Rex stepped sideways again, positioning himself between Ramirez and the classroom door, blocking it. Not aggressively, but deliberately. Ramirez blinked. You want me to stay? Rex gave a soft, restrained whine. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the same sound he made when locating someone hidden during training exercises, when he needed his handler to understand that something important was right here. Ramirez felt his pulse rise. The hallway outside remained empty. Late afternoon sunlight had shifted now, casting longer shadows across the floor. The building's quiet hum felt heavier than before. He crouched again, bringing himself eye level with Rex. What is it? He whispered. Rex's nostrils flared. He glanced at the desk, then at the door, then back to Ramirez. A pattern. Stay. Wait. Notice. Ramirez stood slowly. All right, he said. We're not rushing. He stepped into the hallway and looked both directions. Still empty. He walked a few paces down toward the administrative office. Rex followed. But halfway there, he stopped again. This time more abruptly. The leash pulled tight in Ramirez's hand. Rex turned and walked back toward classroom 3B. Firm. Certain. Ramirez allowed it. He didn't argue. They returned to the doorway. Rex positioned himself directly in the hall, body angled outward, blocking passage like a silent guard. Anyone walking through would have to stop, have to notice. Ramirez leaned against the cool cinderblock wall for a moment. His thoughts moved carefully. Could it be nothing? Of course. Kids drew monsters. Kids wrote dramatic things. But Rex didn't react to imagination. He reacted to scent, to emotional shifts, to subtle physiological cues humans couldn't detect. Ramirez stepped back inside the classroom. He opened the desk again. This time he lifted the spiral notebook fully out. Rex's breathing deepened, slow and controlled. Ramirez flipped to the first page. A stick figure girl. Same small frame. Same dark room. But this time there was a closet drawn in the corner. The door slightly open. Inside, black crayon pressed so hard the paper had torn. He turned the page. Another drawing. The red shape again. Larger now. Closer. The words written beneath it. Be quiet. Ramirez swallowed. Okay, he whispered to himself. His mind began shifting from confusion to recognition. This wasn't playful imagination. This was repetition. The next page showed the girl sitting on what looked like a bed. Tears drawn in blue marker running down her cheeks. The red shape stood in the doorway. Above it, written shakily. He gets mad. Rex lowered himself gently to the floor beside Ramirez. Not in relaxation. In readiness. His chin hovered just above the tile. Eyes up. Watching. Listening. Ramirez closed the notebook slowly. The air in the room felt different now. Not dangerous, but fragile. He stood and walked back into the hallway. Mrs. Carter? He called gently toward the far end. Footsteps echoed faintly. The school's vice principal appeared from around the corner, keys jingling at her side. Officer Ramirez? Everything okay? Her voice carried polite concern. Ramirez glanced at Rex. The dog remained blocking the hallway. Still. Intent. I found something, Ramirez said calmly. Can we talk inside? Mrs. Carter hesitated only a second before nodding. They entered the classroom together. Ramirez handed her the notebook without speaking. She flipped through it casually at first. Then slower. Her expression shifted. Oh, she breathed. He watched her shoulders tighten. She's quiet, Mrs. Carter said softly. Lily. Very quiet. Sweet girl. Rex stood. Walked to the desk again. Placed his nose gently against it. Mrs. Carter looked at him. Is he reacting to this? Ramirez nodded once. He blocked the hallway, he said. Wouldn't let me pass. The vice principal's eyes moved back to the drawings. The silence stretched. Long. Heavy. We've never seen anything like this from her, she whispered. Her assignments are always normal. Ramirez exhaled slowly. Sometimes, he said, voice steady, kids don't say things out loud. Rex shifted slightly, tail giving one slow movement against the tile. Not anxiety. Not aggression. Just awareness. Mrs. Carter closed the notebook carefully. "We'll contact her parents," she began automatically. Ramirez's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Let's pause on that," he said gently. "Let's have someone trained in child advocacy take a look first." Mrs. Carter nodded. Her composure softened into something more protective. "Yes," she said quietly. "Of course." Rex stepped closer to Ramirez's side now. His body relaxed slightly, just enough to show he felt heard. The tension didn't disappear, but it shifted, moved from uncertainty to purpose. Ramirez looked back down the hallway. Earlier it had felt empty. Now it felt important, like a moment suspended between ignorance and understanding. He rested a hand lightly on Rex's shoulder. "You knew," he whispered. Rex didn't wag. He simply looked up. Steady, loyal, present. And for the first time since entering that hallway, Ramirez understood. This wasn't about a drawing. It was about a child who didn't know how to ask for help, and a dog who had listened anyway. The hallway was no longer just a hallway. It was a line that had been drawn, and Rex had refused to let anyone cross it unnoticed. The classroom felt smaller now. Not physically, emotionally. The late afternoon light had shifted again, fading from warm gold to a softer gray-blue. Outside the windows, tree branches swayed gently in the breeze. Their shadows brushed across the glass like quiet hands. Officer Ramirez stood near the interior window. The drawing was still there, taped slightly crooked. He hadn't noticed it at first, not really. Now it felt impossible to ignore. Mrs. Carter stood beside him, her fingers folded tightly in front of her. Rex moved closer. Slow steps. Measured. His nose hovered inches from the paper pressed against the glass. He inhaled once. Then again. A slow, controlled breath. His ears stayed forward. His body still. Why would she tape it there? Mrs. Carter whispered. Ramirez didn't answer right away. He studied the image carefully. The stick-figure girl stood in heavy black scribbles that filled almost the entire page. The lines were jagged, pressed hard. Some crayon wax had gathered in thick ridges along the edges of the strokes. The red shape beside her wasn't detailed, just tall and looming. The words "Don't Tell" were written unevenly above them, each letter shaky. The T's crossed too heavily. The pencil indentations visible even through the glass. "It's facing the hallway," Ramirez said quietly. Mrs. Carter nodded. Yes. She wanted someone walking by to see it. The realization settled between them. Rex shifted his weight. His tail gave one slow sweep against the tile. Not relaxed, not excited. Just aware. Ramirez reached up carefully and peeled the tape from the window. The paper came free with a faint tearing sound. He held it gently, as though it were fragile evidence. "Kids draw monsters," Mrs. Carter said softly, almost to reassure herself. "They draw bad dreams." Ramirez turned the page over. Blank. He turned it back. "Sometimes they draw truths they can't say," he replied. The hallway outside remained quiet. But something about the air felt different now, like the stillness before a storm that might never come, yet changes everything anyway. Rex stepped away from the window. He circled once, then walked directly back to Lily's desk. This time, he lowered himself beside it. Front legs extended, head upright, guarding. Ramirez noticed the shift. Earlier, Rex had been investigative. Now he was protective. Subtle difference, but unmistakable. Mrs. Carter followed his movement. "He keeps going back there," she said. Ramirez nodded. "He associates scent with place," he explained gently. "Fear leaves a scent. Stress. Cortisol. Dogs can detect it long after we walk away." Mrs. Carter swallowed. "You think she was scared here?" Rex's ears twitched. As if answering, Ramirez moved toward the desk again. He opened it once more and removed the notebook carefully. He placed the drawing from the window on top of it. The similarities were undeniable. Same black scribbles. Same red figure. Same small child drawn almost identically each time. But something new caught his attention. On the second-to-last page there was a different detail. A small shape drawn beside the girl. Brown. With pointed ears. 4 legs. A tail. It was crude, childlike. But unmistakable. A dog. Ramirez leaned closer. The dog was drawn slightly larger than the girl, standing between her and the red shape. Mrs. Carter inhaled sharply. Oh! Rex stood, walked slowly toward Ramirez. His nose hovered over that page. Then he exhaled, a slow breath through his nostrils. Not a bark, not a whine, just a steady release of air. You see that? Ramirez murmured softly to him. Rex's tail moved once. The drawing felt like a shift. Not just fear, but hope. Has Lily ever talked about dogs? Ramirez asked. Mrs. Carter shook her head slowly. No, not that I remember. She doesn't talk much at all. Ramirez ran a hand across his jaw. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered faintly. Outside, the sky deepened toward evening. I need to ask, Mrs. Carter said carefully. Are we overreacting? Ramirez didn't answer immediately. He looked at Rex. The dog's body language remained steady. No signs of agitation. No signs of confusion. Just focus. If this were one drawing, Ramirez said quietly, maybe. He tapped the notebook gently. But this is a pattern. Mrs. Carter's shoulders lowered slightly, not in relief but in acceptance. Rex moved closer to her. He didn't jump, didn't nudge. He simply stood beside her leg, leaning his weight ever so slightly against it. Grounding. Mrs. Carter reached down instinctively and rested her hand on his head. His fur was warm, solid, reassuring. He's calm, she whispered. That's the thing, Ramirez replied. He's calm because he's sure. The hallway lights dimmed automatically into evening mode, casting a softer glow through the open doorway. Ramirez gathered the drawings carefully. We need a child advocate, he said. Someone trained to speak to her without leading questions. Mrs. Carter nodded firmly now. Yes. I'll call the district liaison. Rex stepped back into the hallway. He positioned himself once more at the threshold of classroom 3B, not blocking aggressively, but marking it, as if to say, this is where it started. Ramirez paused beside him. He looked down the empty corridor. Earlier it had felt routine, a simple walk to the exit. Now it felt like a turning point. He crouched and met Rex's eyes. You felt it before I did, he said softly. Rex blinked once. Slow. Calm. Ramirez stood again. The drawing rested securely in his hand. A child's silent message, taped where someone might finally see it. And tonight, someone had. Outside, the last of the daylight slipped beneath the horizon. Inside the quiet school, something small but powerful had shifted. The drawing on the window was no longer just paper. It was a voice, and it had finally been heard. Morning came gently. A pale wash of light filtered through the tall windows of Meadow Creek Elementary, carrying with it the faint scent of wet pavement. It had rained overnight. The sidewalks outside still shimmered. Officer Ramirez stood just inside the front entrance with Rex at his side. The school day had begun again. Children's voices echoed down the hallways. Backpacks thumped against lockers. Sneakers squeaked against polished floors. Everything looked normal. That was the hardest part. Rex remained calm, almost unusually so. His tail rested in a neutral line. His posture relaxed but attentive. He wasn't searching now. He was waiting. Mrs. Carter approached with a careful smile. The district child advocate will be here in 20 minutes, she said quietly. We haven't called Lily's parents yet. Ramirez nodded. Good. They walked together toward classroom 3B. The hallway that had felt heavy and silent the evening before now buzzed with life. Children darted past them, whispering and giggling as they glanced at Rex. Hi, Rex, one boy called. Rex's ears flicked toward the sound, but he didn't wag. His focus remained forward. When they reached the classroom door, Ramirez slowed. Inside, Lily sat at her desk. Small. Still. Her dark hair fell in a soft curtain around her face. She traced something lightly on the edge of her worksheet with her fingertip. Not writing, just moving in small circles. Mrs. Carter spoke gently with the teacher, Miss Holloway, near the doorway. Ramirez remained just outside, watching. Rex lowered his head slightly. Not submissive. Observing. When Lily finally glanced up and noticed the dog in the hallway, her hand stopped moving. Her eyes widened. Not with fear. With recognition. Rex felt it instantly. His body shifted. A subtle lean forward. His ears softened. His tail gave the faintest movement, slow and cautious. Ramirez noticed the exchange. Lily looked away quickly, pressing her lips together. Miss Holloway approached the doorway. "She's a quiet one," the teacher said softly. "Always well behaved. Good grades. Never causes trouble." Ramirez nodded. "That's not always the same thing as okay," he replied gently. The child advocate arrived shortly after, a woman named Dr. Karen Whitfield. Calm eyes. Steady voice. She carried no clipboard, no visible forms. Just a soft presence. They agreed to speak with Lily in the reading corner of the classroom, while the other children attended music class. When Lily walked past Rex, she slowed. Just for a second. Her fingers hovered in the air near his back, then dropped again. Rex didn't move toward her. He simply stood there, breathing steady, waiting. In the reading corner, sunlight pooled across the blue rug. Dust motes floated lazily in the air. Dr. Whitfield sat cross-legged, level with Lily's eyes. "I hear you like to draw," she said warmly. Lily nodded once. Barely. Ramirez stood near the doorway with Rex beside him. They kept distance. They didn't interrupt. Dr. Whitfield pulled a blank sheet of paper and a box of crayons from her bag. "Would you like to draw something for me?" Lily hesitated, then took the red crayon. Her fingers gripped it tightly. She began slowly. Ramirez watched carefully. The shape emerged quickly. The same tall red figure. Heavy strokes. Pressed hard. Then black filled the page again. Dense. Crowding. Dr. Whitfield's voice remained calm. "Who is that?" Lily didn't answer. Her jaw tightened. She switched to blue. Drew small teardrops. Then without looking up she reached for brown. Drew a small dog shape between herself and the red figure. Ramirez felt his chest tighten. Rex's breathing shifted. Subtle. A slow inhale. He stepped forward one small pace. Not toward Lily, but closer to Ramirez. Grounded. Dr. Whitfield noticed. "Is that your dog?" she asked gently. Lily shook her head. Whispered something so quiet it barely reached the air. "What was that?" Dr. Whitfield leaned slightly closer. "He keeps bad things away," Lily said. Ramirez closed his eyes for half a second. Just one. Miss Holloway stood in the corner, her hand pressed lightly against her chest. Dr. Whitfield spoke carefully now. "Does someone make you feel scared?" Silence. Long. Heavy. Lily's crayon snapped in her fingers. The sound was small, but sharp. Rex flinched slightly at the noise, then steadied. Lily looked toward the doorway. Toward Rex. Their eyes met. And in that quiet exchange something shifted. Not full disclosure. Not yet. But trust. Dr. Whitfield followed her gaze. "Would you like him to sit closer?" she asked softly. Lily nodded. Ramirez moved slowly. "Sit," he whispered. Rex obeyed immediately, lowering himself just outside the reading corner. Not touching. Not crowding. Present. Lily's shoulders dropped slightly. Her breathing slowed. She reached out, tentative, and let her fingertips brush against Rex's fur. He remained still. Warm. Steady. Dr. Whitfield waited. Didn't rush. "Is someone at home hurting your feelings?" she asked. Lily's lower lip trembled. Just a little. "He gets mad," she whispered. The words were barely audible, but they filled the room. Rex's ears tilted forward again. Protective. Calm. Dr. Whitfield's voice remained soft. "When he gets mad, what happens?" Lily's fingers tightened slightly in Rex's fur. "He says not to tell." Ramirez felt a quiet anger rise, controlled, contained, but present. He forced himself to breathe slowly. This wasn't the moment for reaction. It was the moment for listening. Dr. Whitfield nodded gently. "You're very brave for telling us," she said. Lily shook her head. "I didn't tell." Dr. Whitfield smiled softly. "You drew." The room felt suspended in stillness. Outside, children's music drifted faintly down the hallway. Simple notes. Light. Normal. Inside, something far more delicate unfolded. Rex shifted his weight slightly closer to Lily. Not enough to overwhelm her. just enough to make contact more certain. Lily leaned into him. Barely noticeable, but real. Ramirez understood then. Yesterday he had almost walked away. Almost dismissed it as imagination. Almost trusted normal over instinct. Rex hadn't. He had blocked the hallway. He had refused to let the moment pass. What had seemed like a misread warning was anything but. And now, because a dog had listened when others might not have, a child's quiet truth was finally beginning to surface. The reading corner felt smaller now. Not confining. Protective. Lily's fingers were still curled gently in Rex's fur. She didn't grip tightly. She didn't bury her face against him. She just held on, as if testing whether something steady could truly stay steady. Dr. Whitfield kept her voice calm, even, measured. "You're not in trouble," she said softly. "No one here is mad." Lily's eyes stayed lowered, focused on the page in front of her. The red figure stared up from the paper, unfinished, incomplete, but loud in its silence. Outside the classroom windows, a delivery truck rolled past. The low rumble vibrated faintly through the floor. Somewhere down the hall, a locker slammed shut. Normal sounds. Normal day. And yet, nothing about this moment felt ordinary. Officer Ramirez stood near the doorway, hands clasped loosely in front of him. His training told him to stay neutral, calm, observant. But inside something was tightening. Rex sensed it. He shifted his weight slightly, pressing more firmly into Lily's side instead. Grounding her. Grounding Ramirez too. Dr. Whitfield spoke again, careful not to lead. "When he gets mad, do you feel safe?" Lily shook her head. Slowly. Her voice came out smaller this time. "He yells." Dr. Whitfield nodded gently. "Does he ever hurt you?" Silence. Long enough for the fluorescent lights to hum louder. Lily's eyes flicked toward Rex, then back to the page. She nodded. Once. Barely. Ramirez's breath caught. He forced himself not to step forward. Dr. Whitfield's tone didn't change. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "You did nothing wrong." Lily's fingers trembled slightly in Rex's fur. "He says it's my fault," she whispered. Rex lifted his head, just enough to look at her. His eyes soft, steady, his breathing slow. A quiet reminder. "You are not alone." Dr. Whitfield let a few seconds pass. Then she asked gently, "Where does he get mad?" Lily hesitated. Then she drew something new. A rectangle. Dark. In the corner of the page. A small door. Shut. "The closet," she said. Mrs. Carter inhaled sharply from across the room. Ramirez felt the air thin in his lungs. Dr. Whitfield kept her posture relaxed. "And when you're in there, what do you think about?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. Not loud crying. Not dramatic. Just quiet moisture pooling at the edges. "I think about dogs," she said. The room went still. Rex's ears softened. His tail gave one slow movement against the rug. Dr. Whitfield smiled gently. "Why dogs?" Lily looked at Rex directly now. "They protect." The word was firm. Certain. Ramirez blinked hard once. He had heard children say many things over the years. But something about that simple sentence. It landed differently. Dr. Whitfield placed her hands calmly on her knees. "Lily, we're going to help you," she said. "You don't have to go in that closet anymore." Lily's breathing quickened slightly. Fear. Confusion. Hope. All tangled together. Rex adjusted his position. He carefully stood. Turned once in a slow circle. Then lay down fully beside her. His body forming a quiet barrier between Lily and the open classroom space. Not trained to do that. Instinct. Ramirez saw it clearly. Protective posture. Calm but deliberate. Dr. Whitfield glanced at Ramirez briefly. A silent exchange passed between them. It was time. "We need to contact Child Protective Services," she said quietly. "And law enforcement will need to conduct a proper home check." Ramirez nodded. "I'll handle the report," he said. His voice was steady, professional. But inside, the image of a small child sitting in a dark closet pressed against his chest like weight. He stepped into the hallway to make the call. Rex didn't follow. He stayed. With Lily. The hallway felt brighter now. But sharper. Each footstep echoed louder than it had yesterday. As Ramirez spoke to dispatch, he kept his voice calm and precise. No speculation. Just facts. Documented statements. Observable behavior. Back inside the classroom, Dr. Whitfield continued gently. Is your mom home when this happens? Lily nodded. She works late, she said. He watches me. The words were simple, but they explained enough. When Ramirez returned, the room felt different. Still fragile, but no longer silent. The truth had shape now. Not just scribbles on paper. Not just instinct. Reality. Rex remained beside Lily, his eyes occasionally scanning the doorway, then returning to her. Mrs. Carter knelt slowly across from Lily. We care about you very much, she said softly. You are safe here. Lily's shoulders relaxed another inch. Not fully, but enough. Outside, a siren wailed faintly in the distance. Unrelated. Passing by on another street. Life moving forward. Unaware. Ramirez crouched near Rex. Good boy, he whispered quietly. Rex didn't wag. He simply stayed. The Child Protective Services team arrived within the hour. Gentle voices. Soft introductions. No uniforms at first. No harsh movements. Everything deliberate. Everything slow. Lily held on to Rex until the very last possible moment. When it was time for her to step away, she hesitated. Rex remained still, watching her, trusting the humans to do the next part. Ramirez placed a hand lightly on Lily's shoulder. You did the bravest thing today, he said. She looked up at him, then at Rex. Can he come? She asked. The question was small, hopeful. Ramirez swallowed. He'll visit, he said gently. Lily nodded, and for the first time, a faint fragile smile appeared. Not wide, not carefree, but real. As she walked down the hallway with the advocates, she turned once. Rex stood, straightened, and held her gaze until she disappeared around the corner. The hidden truth was no longer hidden. It had been drawn, blocked, protected, and finally, heard. The sky had turned a pale, overcast gray by late afternoon. Clouds hung low over the neighborhood where Lily lived, modest houses lined closely together, trimmed lawns still damp from the night before. A swing creaked faintly in a nearby yard. Somewhere, a sprinkler clicked rhythmically against pavement. Officer Ramirez sat in his patrol vehicle just down the street. Rex rested in the back compartment, calm but alert, his posture upright, his breathing steady. He wasn't agitated. He was ready. Child Protective Services had coordinated carefully. No flashing lights. No sudden movements. No spectacle. This wasn't about punishment. It was about safety. Ramirez stepped out of the vehicle and opened the rear door for Rex. Easy, he murmured. Rex jumped down smoothly, landing softly on the damp sidewalk. His nose lifted immediately, testing the air. The scent carried layers: wet grass, motor oil, laundry detergent drifting from an open window. And beneath it, stress. Ramirez saw the shift. Rex's ears tilted forward. Not rigid. Attentive. They walked toward the small blue house with white trim. The paint was slightly chipped near the porch steps. A plastic flower pot sat crooked near the door. Dr. Whitfield stood nearby with another social worker. Calm faces. Gentle posture. The front door opened before they knocked. A man in his late 30s stepped out. Tall. Tired-looking. His jaw tight. What's this about? He asked, irritation flickering beneath forced politeness. Ramirez kept his tone steady. We're here to check on Lily. Rex remained beside him. Still. The man glanced at the dog. His shoulders stiffened almost imperceptibly. Lily's fine, he said quickly. Rex's nose twitched. He didn't bark. Didn't growl. But his body leaned subtly forward. Ramirez noticed. May we come in? Dr. Whitfield asked gently. The man hesitated. Just long enough to matter. Then stepped aside. The house smelled faintly of stale coffee and something sharper beneath it. Anxiety that clung to the air like humidity. The living room was tidy but sparse. A television played quietly in the background. Cartoon voices filled the space with artificial cheerfulness. Lily sat on the couch, her knees drawn close to her chest. When she saw Rex, her eyes widened. Not fear. Relief. Rex's tail moved once. Slow. Deliberate. He didn't rush toward her. He waited for Ramirez's cue. It's okay, Ramirez said softly. Rex stepped forward at a measured pace. He approached Lily carefully, lowering his head slightly as he neared. Lily's hand reached out instinctively. Rex pressed his shoulder gently against her knees. Grounding. Present. The man shifted behind them. What is this? He demanded. Ramirez kept his focus on Lily. We just need to talk, he said calmly. Dr. Whitfield knelt beside the couch. Lily, remember what we talked about this morning? She asked gently. Lily nodded. Her fingers tightened slightly in Rex's fur. The man's voice grew sharper. She's fine. She has an imagination. Rex's ears flicked backward at the rising tone. His body didn't tense aggressively, but he stepped half a pace closer to Lily. A barrier. Subtle. Clear. Ramirez noticed the change in the air. The man's breathing quickened. His jaw clenched. Sir, Ramirez said evenly, we're conducting a welfare check. Please lower your voice. Silence dropped heavily into the room. Outside, a car passed slowly down the street. Inside, Lily's small frame seemed even smaller. Dr. Whitfield spoke softly. Lily, would you like to pack a few things to bring with you for a little while? The words were careful. Temporary. Gentle. Lily looked up. Can Rex come? She asked again. Ramirez crouched beside her. He'll visit, he said. I promise. The man took a step forward. This is ridiculous, he muttered. Rex stood. Not lunging. Not threatening. Just tall. His posture firm. Eyes steady. The message was simple. Not today. Not here. The social worker moved toward the hallway. Lily, can you show me your room? Lily slid off the couch slowly. Rex walked beside her one step behind. Not leading. Not pulling. Just accompanying. Her bedroom door creaked softly as it opened. The room was neat. Stuffed animals lined against the wall. A small nightlight shaped like a star sat on the dresser. Rex paused at the doorway. His nose lifted, then lowered toward the corner of the room, toward the closet. He walked to it slowly. Saturday. Stared. Lily's breath hitched. Dr. Whitfield noticed. You don't have to go in there, she said gently. Lily shook her head. I know. Ramirez stepped into the doorway. He saw it now. The small space. The door handle worn slightly at the edges. Rex remained seated in front of it. Not growling. Not scratching. Just present. A silent witness. Ramirez felt something shift inside him. Not anger but resolve. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't exaggeration. This was a child who had learned to survive quietly. And a dog who had refused to ignore it. The packing was quick. A backpack filled with clothes, a toothbrush, a favorite stuffed rabbit. Lily moved slowly, as if unsure whether this was real. When it was time to leave, she paused at the front door. The man stood in the kitchen now. Silent. Tight. Rex positioned himself beside Lily again. She reached down and hugged his neck. Brief. Firm. Thank you, she whispered into his fur. Rex didn't move. He simply stood there, absorbing the weight of her small arms. Outside, the air felt cooler, cleaner. The clouds began to thin, revealing a faint strip of light near the horizon. Lily stepped into the back seat of the social worker's car. She looked through the window. Rex sat on the sidewalk watching, still, protective. The car door closed softly. As the vehicle pulled away, Lily pressed her palm against the glass. Rex held his position until the car disappeared around the corner. Only then did he relax his posture. Just slightly. Ramirez knelt beside him. You did your job, he said quietly. Rex turned his head toward him. Calm. Steady. No triumph. No excitement. Just quiet certainty. The rescue hadn't been loud. There were no sirens. No dramatic confrontations. Just small decisions. Careful steps. A blocked hallway. A drawing on a window. And a dog who had listened when no one else could. The foster home sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac lined with maple trees. It was smaller than Lily's old house, but warmer. Wind chimes hung near the porch, singing softly whenever the breeze passed through. The scent of freshly baked bread drifted faintly from the kitchen window. Officer Ramirez parked along the curb and turned off the engine. Beside him, Rex lifted his head. He didn't whine, didn't pace, but his ears perked forward the moment the house came into view. "She's here," Ramirez said quietly. Rex's tail gave a slow, hopeful sweep against the seat. The past 2 weeks had unfolded carefully. Child services had moved with intention. Interviews, evaluations, temporary placement. Lily had said very little during that time, but she had asked one thing, more than once. "Can Rex visit?" Ramirez stepped out of the vehicle and opened the rear door. "Easy," he murmured. Rex jumped down lightly onto the pavement. The air carried the scent of cut grass and something sweet, lavender maybe from the bushes lining the walkway. The foster mother, Mrs. Donnelly, opened the door before they reached it. She was in her early 50s with kind eyes and flour-dusted hands. "She's been watching for you," she said softly. Ramirez nodded in thanks. Inside, the house felt gentle. Soft yellow walls. Family photos lining the hallway. A woven blanket folded neatly over the couch. Lily sat cross-legged on the living room rug. A coloring book open in front of her. She looked smaller here somehow, but lighter. When the door clicked shut behind Ramirez, she looked up. Her eyes found Rex immediately. Everything else faded. Rex stood still, waiting. Ramirez unclipped the leash. "Go ahead," he said quietly. Rex walked toward her slowly. Measured steps. No rushing. No jumping. He lowered himself a few feet away first, giving her space. Lily didn't hesitate this time. She crawled the remaining distance and wrapped her arms around his neck. Not tight. Not desperate. Just certain. Rex leaned gently into her embrace. His body warm. Solid. Breathing steady. Mrs. Donnelly turned away slightly, giving them privacy. Ramirez watched from near the doorway. The room felt full. Not with noise. With relief. After a moment, Lily pulled back and looked at Rex carefully. "You came," she whispered. Rex's tail brushed the rug once. Lily ran her fingers through the fur behind his ears, the way she had in the classroom. Slow. Repetitive. Grounding. Dr. Whitfield had explained that Lily was sleeping better. Fewer night terrors. Fewer silent episodes. But trust wasn't something that appeared overnight. It arrived in small increments. Like this. Lily sat back down and picked up a crayon. She slid the coloring book toward Rex as if showing him. "This is Daisy," she said softly, pointing to a picture of a dog outlined on the page. Rex tilted his head slightly, listening. Ramirez smiled faintly. "Daisy looks brave," he said. Lily nodded. "She keeps the girl safe." Mrs. Donnelly sat gently in the armchair nearby. "She talks more when she draws," she said quietly to Ramirez. He nodded. "She always did." Lily reached for a brown crayon. But this time, she didn't press hard. The strokes were lighter, softer, more controlled. Rex shifted slightly, laying fully on his side now, exposing his belly in relaxed trust. Lily's eyes widened. "He trusts me," she murmured. "Yes," Ramirez said gently. "He does." She reached out and placed her palm lightly against his chest, feeling the rise and fall of his breathing. Steady, predictable, safe. A sudden clap of thunder rolled faintly in the distance. Lily flinched. Just slightly. Rex's head lifted instantly. Not alarmed. Alert. He turned toward her and pressed closer without being asked. Lily's shoulders relaxed again. "It's just weather," Mrs. Donnelly said warmly from across the room. Lily nodded. But she didn't move her hand from Rex. The storm passed quickly, only a brief summer shower. Rain tapped gently against the windows. The scent of wet earth drifted inside. Ramirez crouched near them. "How's school?" he asked softly. Lily shrugged. "Quiet." He nodded. "That's okay." She hesitated, then asked, "Will I have to go back?" The question hung carefully between them. Ramirez chose his words slowly. "You'll stay somewhere safe," he said. "That's what matters." She seemed to consider that, then nodded once. Rex's tail thumped gently against the rug. Not playful, just present. Time moved slowly in that living room. measured in soft breaths and careful words. Eventually, Lily stood and walked toward a small desk by the window. She pulled out a single sheet of blank paper, sat down, began to draw. Ramirez watched quietly. Rex remained beside her chair, guarding without tension. The picture unfolded gradually. A small house, a bright sun, a little girl standing in the yard, and beside her, a dog, large, brown, positioned between her and everything else. But this time, there was no red figure, no black scribbles, no heavy pressure tearing at the page, just open space, light strokes, clear sky. Lily turned the paper toward Ramirez. "He doesn't let bad things stay," she said. Ramirez felt his throat tighten. Rex leaned his head gently against her leg. Healing didn't erase what had happened. It didn't pretend the closet never existed. But it built something new. Layer by layer. Moment by moment. Trust. When it was time for Ramirez and Rex to leave, Lily walked them to the door. She knelt one more time and pressed her forehead briefly against Rex's. "See you soon," she whispered. Rex held still. Present. Steady. As they stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was clearing. Sunlight filtered through thinning clouds, casting soft beams across the quiet street. Ramirez glanced down at his partner. "You're more than a police dog," he said quietly. Rex looked up at him. Calm. Certain. He hadn't just blocked a hallway. He had built a bridge. And through that bridge, a child was learning how to trust again. Autumn arrived quietly. Leaves turned the color of amber and rust, drifting slowly onto sidewalks that had once shimmered with summer rain. The air carried a crisp edge now. Cool in the mornings, gentle by afternoon. Meadow Creek Elementary looked the same from the outside. Brick walls. Wide windows. Children's artwork displayed proudly along the glass. But inside, something had changed. Officer Ramirez walked through the front doors with Rex at his side once more. The familiar scent of crayons and floor polish greeted them. Lockers clanged. Laughter echoed. Routine. Comforting. Rex's gait was relaxed today. His tail carried in an easy line. His ears moved casually at passing sounds. A bouncing ball in the gym. A teacher calling attendance down the hall. No tension. No urgency. Just presence. Mrs. Carter met them near the office with a warm smile. "She's been asking if you'd come," she said. Ramirez nodded. "How's she doing?" Mrs. Carter's eyes softened. "Better," she said simply. "Stronger." They walked toward classroom 3B. The same hallway. The same polished floors. But it no longer felt heavy. Sunlight streamed through the windows in wide golden bands, catching dust motes in midair. Rex slowed slightly as they approached the door. Not stopping. Just noticing. A quiet acknowledgement of a place that had once held tension. Ramirez rested a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It's okay," he murmured. Inside the classroom, Lily sat at her desk. Her posture was different now. Still reserved. Still quiet. But upright. Present. When she looked up and saw Rex, her face lit with something unmistakable. Joy. Rex's tail moved immediately, slow at first, then a little wider. Controlled. Happy. The teacher smiled and gave Lily a small nod. She stood and walked toward them, holding a large sheet of construction paper carefully against her chest. "You came," she said softly. "We said we would," Ramirez replied. Rex lowered himself into a sit automatically, eyes level with hers. Lily knelt in front of him and pressed her forehead gently to his. A quiet ritual now. Not desperate. Not clinging. Just connection. "I made something," she said. She stood and handed the paper to Ramirez. He unfolded it slowly. The drawing filled the page. A bright blue sky. A yellow sun in the corner. A small house with flowers lining the walkway. A girl standing confidently on the front step. And beside her, a large brown dog. Strong. Steady. Between her and the open world. But this time there were no shadows. No red shapes. No black scribbles crowding the edges. In bold purple letters across the top, she had written, "I told." Ramirez felt his breath catch. Rex leaned closer to the drawing and sniffed it lightly, then looked up at Lily. His eyes soft. Mrs. Carter wiped quietly at the corner of her eye. "That's beautiful," she said. Lily looked at Rex. You listened, she whispered. Rex's tail brushed the floor gently, not because he understood the words, but because he understood her. Ramirez crouched beside them. You were brave, he said softly. Lily shook her head. He blocked it, she said, pointing toward the hallway. Ramirez followed her gesture. The same stretch of corridor where Rex had planted himself weeks earlier, where he had refused to move, where he had drawn a line without barking or baring teeth. Just standing, just insisting. Rex shifted slightly closer to Lily. Protective, but calm. The school bell rang faintly in the distance, signaling the end of the period. Children's voices swelled in the hallway. Life moving forward. Unstoppable. Lily stood slowly. She hesitated for only a second before wrapping her arms around Rex one more time. Not tight. Not fearful. Just grateful. Thank you, she whispered again. Rex remained steady beneath her touch. Warm. Solid. A quiet promise made of fur and heartbeat. When it was time for Ramirez and Rex to leave, Lily walked them to the classroom door. She paused in the doorway, looked down the hallway, then back at Rex. I'm not scared here anymore, she said. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Ramirez nodded slowly. That's what matters. Rex stepped into the corridor first this time. Confident. Easy. The hallway no longer held tension in its walls. Only memory. And growth. As they walked toward the exit, sunlight poured through the front windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Ramirez glanced down at his partner. You knew, he said quietly. Rex looked up. Calm. Certain. He hadn't understood drawings. He hadn't understood words like don't tell. But he had understood something deeper. A shift in scent. A tremor in air. A silent plea. Outside, the autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves. Children's laughter spilled out onto the playground. Bright. Free. Rex paused at the top of the steps and looked back once toward the school. Not guarding now. Not searching. Just watching. Satisfied. Ramirez rested a hand on his back. Let's go home, he said softly. Rex turned and walked beside him down the steps. Steady. Faithful. The world hadn't changed overnight. There were still quiet hallways in other schools. Other drawings taped to windows. Other children who didn't know how to say the words. But sometimes, all it took was one instinct. One pause. One dog who refused to move. And a small voice brave enough to draw instead of speak. As the patrol car pulled away, the school grew smaller in the rearview mirror. Inside the building, Lily returned to her desk. She picked up a crayon. And this time, she drew an open space. No shadows. No red. Just sky. And somewhere in that sky, a brown dog stood watch. Not because she needed saving anymore, but because love, once given freely and quietly, never truly leaves.